Good evening. My name is Shay Owens, and I'm the Director of Opera here at BYU. On behalf of the School of Music and the Department of Theater and Media Arts, welcome to the opera. We're glad you chose us over Netflix tonight.
You could say that The Merry Widow is kind of a cross between The Bachelorette and Pride and Prejudice.
Hannah Glabari is a widow, a rich widow, and she is back in the city.
Now Hannah's free to follow her heart and marry her former fiancé, Count Danilovich. Hannah and the Count are residing in France, but they're from a fictitious country of Pontevedra, which is on the verge of bankruptcy.
And so the ambassador is trying to convince everybody to go get the money so that money doesn't get lost.
And so in this bid for Hannah's new wealth, there's this fierce competition for her hand in marriage by eager bachelors.
Hannah Glabari is really a smart girl. She knows that everyone wants her millions. So she's playing with all the people there, with all the men there.
But one in particular, Danilo, he's had a past relationship with Hannah. They almost got married. But he doesn't want Hannah to think that he loves her only for her wealth.
And she likes him anyway. She loves him. And so the story is how they get together.
I choose the opera in collaboration with the other vocal faculty to showcase the talents of the students in the program. Merry Widow not only was a great fit, we feel, for our students, but we think it was a fitting show to say farewell to the Dion, since this will be the final opera performance that will happen there.
It premiered in 1905, and the librettists based this script on a French play from the time period. In the first 2 years, The Merry Widow was translated into over 25 languages and performed over 20,000 times. It's estimated that annually it's performed about 1,000 times a year. Ironically, just like Pontevedra, the premiere of The Merry Widow actually saved the theater in Vienna, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy as well. The music is by Austrian-Hungarian composer Franz Lehár. He is solely credited for reinvigorating the public's interest in operettas, ushering in the silver age of operetta.
The difference between an opera and an operetta is that an operetta is typically a little bit lighter in content, and it usually has spoken dialogue. So it's a little bit closer to a musical.
The difference between musical and operetta is to sing operetta correctly, you have to be classically trained. You can't sing in a belting voice. That's the biggest difference.
If I had to put my finger on it, I would say that opera is 3 parts: passion, passion, and passion. Passion for the theater makers, our passion for the libretto, and our passion for the music.
The cast this year is about 4 times larger or more than the cast of last year's opera. The orchestra's a lot bigger. We have dancers in addition to our normal singers and actors. And it's wonderful to be able to see that all coming together to produce a truly grand opera.
It takes many hands to make theater.
I think our audiences will find that this opera has a lot of tunes that they'll be able to hum as they go home.
The libretto was performed at BYU a quarter of a century ago in 1997, and it's an adaptation by BYU opera director Dr. Vincent with the help of his wife, Jean.
I had performed that piece 40 or 50 times in Europe. And when I arrived here in 97, I found that they had already chosen the production they were going to do. They had already started rehearsing it a little bit. And when I got it, I started looking at the score. They used the same music, but then it was just a completely different piece to me. I said to him, "This isn't The Merry Widow." And so he said, "Well, where could we find a translation of it?" So my wife, who speaks very good German, helped me translate that. And we hadn't finished it all the way before school started, but we finished the first act. So I just started with the first act without telling him we weren't even finished with it. And then over the weeks, we kept working hard and were able to finish it.
One of the more poignant moments is the very last duet, the Merry Widow Waltz, which is probably the most famous and well-known number of this show.
So Hannah challenged him to a duel because he was like, I don't love you, and I'm never going to say I love you to you. She is like, okay, we'll see then.
At the beginning of the opera, Danilo is trying to avoid her because he is so afraid of saying I love you, because the only thing we all know he wants to do in the opera is just run to her arms and say I love you, please marry me. But again, his pride doesn't let him do that.
The 19th century Viennese waltz titillated the public with how close couples were allowed to embrace while dancing.
And so the song that he's singing to her is, "I see by your eyes, I hear by the music that you love me." But he never says, "I love you" back.
She tries to get closer, and to, I don't know, like, get her dizzy with his beautiful and sweet words.
And the man's arm is wrapped around the woman's waist. And
It's just a lovely moment that's kind of the apex just before everything comes together.
at the turn of the 20th century, just as the Merry Widow Waltz hit the States, the Boston Waltz came into creation, and it exploded, and it became the dance craze all over the world.
I hope that audiences come away from this understanding that life and relationships can be messy and complicated, and that it's always best if you can be a little forgiving of others. We're all imperfect. We're all trying to find our way, and in the end, I think forgiveness and love wins out.